Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome to another webinar of Blockchain Talks of Blockchain Academy, Istanbul Aydın University. Today, we have a very important topic and very distinguished speaker. Our today's speaker is Mr. Phillipe Gerwill, and the subject is healthcare in Metaverse. I would like to also tell that Mr. Gerwill is the member of the advisory board of the DeHealth. So we will be very interested to listen to Phillipe. Dear Phillipe, floor is yours, please.
So thank you very much for the nice introduction and for the invitation. I think it's a very exciting opportunity for me because most of the time I'm talking to doctors, about that topic about healthcare and the metaverse. Now I'm talking to metaverse and blockchain specialists, which is also a very nice challenge for me. So let me start to share the screen. So just confirm that you see the screen.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so as mentioned, the topic today is healthcare in the metaverse. So the agenda would be a short introduction, a little bit more about myself than what you said, but it's still going to try to keep it short. Then what is the metaverse, the key trends, and then moving to the core of the discussion, to healthcare in the metaverse, key challenges, and of course with some Q&A at the end, which I would be more than happy to answer. So the introduction, I'm not going to go to all the list, but just to say, I spent about 30 years in the industry, also in global roles. So mainly at Ciba, Novartis, and Lonza, so mainly specialty chemicals and pharmaceuticals. And then I do a lot of keynote speeches. I also did the TEDx. And again, some of my main activities next to being a speaker is really I'm a member of many advisory boards. So you mentioned DeHealth, but I'm also for the MedTech world. I'm a WISeKey, which is more technical company. Maybe you know WISeKey. They also do blockchain, NFTs, and stuff like that. I'm also a healthcare consultant for Tata Elxsi in India. Another startup I just started on conversational AI, also in India, microgrid. I also advisor for a company in Hong Kong. Future is Meta, so they are more doing building the metaverse stuff. I'm an advisor in Singapore, so I think that's what is more important for me. It's very different advisory role in different countries, so which helps me to get quite a big overview. So let's move to the core of the topic. So what is the metaverse? So I guess I think some times ago we said there is no real definition of the metaverse. Now I think we have probably hundreds of definitions, so all of it slightly different. But I think the key point you hear quite often is that, the term metaverse itself is not really new. It was coined the first time in 1992 in a science fiction book, Snow Crash, written by Neil Stephenson. And just to say that the term metaverse is not really new science fiction. The point is just that, like many things, the science fiction is becoming closer to real life. So there are three key elements. So there's a VR interface, digital ownership, which I guess is a very important topic for, blockchain specialists. And avatars, but still these are some features, but it doesn't mean that you need to have all. I think that's what is actually some of the key features, of the metaverse. But in the broad terms, the metaverse is more understood as a graphically rich virtual space where people can work, play, shop, socialize, etc. In short term, doing what people do in real life, but more to the point, doing it on the internet. So metaverse proponents even talk more about presence. And even if you talk to people that are building metaverses, they, for example, they don't talk about building, they talk about space. Metaverse one of the key concepts in the metaverse is to understand the space and how you move in a virtual space. So what I want to show here is just a few, well-known movies around metaverse, even if it was not always called the metaverse. But for me, the point is, you see Avatar on the left-hand side, that was back in 2009. We are in 2023. And, the second Avatar movie even came out, So there were really already movies around the metaverse. One which is often mentioned is Ready Player One, which is more recent, but still 5 years old, 2018. And there's another one a little bit more funny around, the metaverse in 2021, Free Guy. And the point is why I put also this Free Guy is the problem of science fiction in the Western world. For me, it's very often something, what should I say, frightening, negative, while, for example, in China, quite often science fiction is more positive. So people have less issue to move from science fiction to real life because it's something positive. In the Western world, it's catastrophic scenarios and stuff like that, end of the world and all that. So of course, when you come with such concept, you have a negative mindset, towards. So I have the movies behind that, the trailers, but I'm not going to play them because maybe you saw them. But for me, Avatar is, for example, is important because when I talk about healthcare in the metaverse, because if some people remember, if they saw it, one of the key personage in the Avatar is a guy in a wheelchair, a former soldier, US soldier who is in a wheelchair, but by going into the Avatar world, he's not, he's not in the wheelchair anymore. He's again in a normal life. So for me, in terms of healthcare of the metaverse, Avatar is a good example where you say that basically handicapped people can be in a world where they can forget their handicap. So for me, I think it's interesting, I say the metaverse is promised to be the biggest major tech disruption to our everyday life since the smartphone. So I think that's very provocative. That's what I believe. On the other side, I just participated in a research interview yesterday from the Netherlands. Maybe you know that some of the big companies, the big tech companies are even kind of getting out or slowing down their investments in the metaverse. So some signs may not show that, but I still believe, that is going to become very, a huge disruption and quicker. I'm not unhappy that it's not just driven by big companies and that some smaller players might have more to say in that world. So just pictures sometimes speak more than words. So I think that's, moving from the paper work, and maybe some people in the call may even not remember that time, on the left-hand side, to the smartphone world. So that was a huge disruption. And, in picture, that's the next disruption I see, to moving from the smartphone, really to the metaverse and to this integrated virtual world. So some key trends. Of course, I cannot avoid to start with the gaming, because I think that's where probably, they may still laugh when we talk metaverse, because in the gaming, they are in this kind of environment since years, so you have example like Fortnite, Call of Duty, or for the people who prefer, sports, you have the FIFA game. So they are really close, they are in there. A lot of technological advances and innovation is coming, from this gaming industry. Of course, I have to find, when I talk about healthcare, I have sometimes, to find the right balance. And recently in a talk in Dubai, where I was talking about the healthcare in the metaverse, and it was within a big conference about e-gaming, I asked them to close the door because they're not going to like what I'm going to say, and the key point for me was, thank you for the technology, but I don't want a metaverse where you have weapons, blood, violence, and maybe even addiction we should put on the table, when we talk about healthcare in the metaverse. But again, the big technological innovation and steps are coming from the gaming industry. And then, of course, VR gaming, so really having the headsets. And I think a lot of people talk about it, but if you have never tried it, you have to try to really get that feeling of immersion, and the presence. And I have seen people, shouting, crying, or whatever, because it's a different perception, once you have the VR glasses on. Some other here, so the fashion brands, they were quite quick in moving into the metaverse. And I think I could update these few examples here every week. I think even that slide is probably a few months old, because many other brands, big brands have moved there, but you have seen, you have Nike, Gucci, Giorgio Armani, Burberry, Balenciaga, and again, I could fill the whole slide probably today without any space anymore with all those brands. But there are also new digital brands. So that one I just like to show because I was exposed to that company, so-called Republike. So the company, I met the founder at a conference probably 5-6 years ago already. And at that time, he was not talking about the metaverse. It changed now, his vision and the word. But at that time, he was selling basically a sustainable fashion, because that the whole fashion is not the best example when it comes to sustainability and impact in terms of supply chain and everything. So at that time, this Republic is a website where you can go on and you can buy virtual clothes. And then you upload your picture, and then the team will work on to make a 3D avatar of you with the clothes that you have chosen. And I had a lot of arguments, for example, even with my grown-up kids or my wife about that, because 5-6 years ago, they were saying, no, I want real clothes, and I explained for the younger generation, it's a lot about the presence on the internet. So that they picture, they have TikTok, they have Snapchat and all that. So at the end, what is the difference about having a virtual clothes or a real clothes? And again, that's now coming more and more obvious now with the metaverse. But I think this small company called Republike was a front runner in that space years ago. Arts, of course, there's also a lot about arts, and then we can maybe even talk about NFTs and all that. But I think there are already quite some museum, where you can visit on the metaverse and you can go around in the place, watch the different or sculptures or pictures. So that's also a space where it moved quite quickly, in terms of metaverse. And now we move to the healthcare in the metaverse. So as I said before, were just a few trends, some of the industry which were moving quickly. Even I think this week, or maybe it was last week, there was again a fashion week on the metaverse, for example. So now moving to healthcare in the metaverse. So one of the topics which is becoming more and more important in healthcare, is fitness and well-being. For years, I was always saying, that we do more sick care than health care, so coming from the pharma industry, for me, it's about selling pills and treatments, but today you want healthy people. So you have all these examples. So here are some applications which are doing nudging, where you can get daily tracking of your steps, for example, on the right-hand sides. You have all the other applications, so traditional ones, that you have a standard, on Apple, on Android, so health data, activities. And on the left-hand side, I think that one is also important to see, what makes us healthy and where we really spend our time on. And I think that's why we have to make a shift, you know, so that we are much more aligned. We all know what we should do, you know, in terms of healthy behaviors, but we don't do that much. And I'm not an exception in that case. I got enough comments from my wife what I should do, you know, to lose weight and all that. And what I'm doing is quite different. So again, that's really this trend towards wellness, preventive care. And again, I talked about nudging, but of course we also talk about tokens. So the tokenization of that, you know, so that people get some reward if they have good behaviors. And then again, we come to, you know, to a blockchain discussion and whatever, but that's really a strong trend to avoid to become sick. I recently also had the opportunity to talk to a top manager of Neom. So I don't know, I guess probably most of you know Neom, this big city, you know, project in Saudi, you know, where they are spending billions to make that. And again, the healthcare piece in Neom will be focused more on wellness and preventive care. So the next one, so these are two examples, you know, so virtual gym and sports. So I will run a short video. These are still examples from Meta. So they are some good examples, but I don't like to talk too much about Meta, you know, so Facebook Meta, because too many people think Metaverse is just Meta. And that one, I want to break that, you know, that thinking, because Meta is doing some stuff, but you know that if Metaverse would be only Meta, we might have some issues, you know, because Meta has not only a good reputation, you know, when it comes to data leakages or other stuff, you know, monetization, all that. But in terms of some of the products they do, of course, they are good examples. So let me just run that video so that you have a feeling about what could be, you know, the virtual gym and sport.
You need to work out on your own. Maybe against an AI. Maybe you'll get some friends together for some 3-on-3. Maybe play pickup with people on the other side of the world. It's like the AR charity ride. You'll be able to train the best. Like they're with them. Like me, Peter, Olympic gold medals.
Thanks. You feel like a natural.
Well, that's a little scuba Wednesday. See you later, Liddy. That was fun.
Bye, Mark.
So that was just, I said, an advertising for Meta, but just to say where you can go. And these are just examples where I think you can go further. But it's the same, as I said, for virtual gym and sport, but it will be the same for doctors, you know, to get access to doctors and specialists at the other end of the world, you know, like if you would be there. Then again, in terms of virtual relaxation, you know, so yoga, meditation. So I just put some pictures, you know, like you could do yoga in your bedroom, you know, but being on the beach, you know, a beautiful beach somewhere, maybe, you know, some nice beach in Turkey or whatever, you know. On the right-hand side, you could do meditation with one of the best, you know, Buddhist priest or whatever, you know. So you can, it's not only about it's easy to be in another environment, but get access to experts in that area where you would have to travel, miles and maybe even not being available, So it's really you decide the time and the distance, will just be completely a factor that you could ignore. Then telemedicine, of course, it was a big topic during COVID. I recently even had the opportunity to meet a guy from Ukraine, who basically developed telemedicine platform just during the war, because during the war, people could not travel around or get to some doctors or whatever. So there are unfortunately some factors like the war or the COVID that accelerated, telemedicine. And I had personally my first telemedicine experience, at the beginning of COVID with my GP. I tell you, it was not an easy experience because he didn't know also on the other side how to use it. So sometimes I didn't see him, he was talking, I didn't see the picture, he was not in front of the camera and stuff like that. But really, the remote care, and one important point in healthcare is really to shift the point of care. So as much as you can, nobody likes to go to the hospital and all that. So whatever we can do from our home, we should be able to do it, and Metaverse can be one of those channels. Virtual hospitals, I think we will see some more examples at the end. They are really some already existing ones. And then even medical diagnosis, of course, I'm talking even certain points you can do, with virtual glasses. So, there's a lot that you can diagnose out of your eyes. We know diabetes and some other stuff, so it's not just from the camera, but they can also be devices, wearables that can help you, and sometimes they can even be better in terms of diagnosis. And then you have also virtual therapies, probably you heard about, digital therapeutics and all that. I hope that some of you didn't hear about the recent news, which are not so good, about peer therapeutics filing for bankruptcy, but again, it's not because of the digital therapeutics. I think there was a mismanagement in terms of whatever, that they raised millions and probably didn't use them correctly, to leverage that investment. I mentioned already before slightly, but mental health treatment, that's one that's not the future, that's already existing, so there is a lot of use of VR and Metaverse for this mental health treatment. So being post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, anxiety disorders. You see here in the picture, you see this nice spider, so these are all things you can work on. Delusions, psychosis, hallucination, eating disorders. So really, there's a lot of stuff that can be done, thanks to this technology. And then a big topic for healthcare is, of course, the whole medical training and education. And you can really get also, what is also important is to be trained, with AR, VR, XR technology, whatever, but risk-free, so you can really get some kind of virtual hand-ons without, killing somebody or whatever. So you can get hours and hours, days and days of training, before you get to touch, really a patient. So this is one of my friends, Professor Shafi Ahmed. I just had a call with him on Tuesday afternoon again, because I'm going to join one of the company where he's also, what should I can even say it? The company is called AI Medis, and he's the first chief medical metaverse officer. So he's a chief medical officer for many other companies, but he's the first chief medical metaverse officer. And he's an amazing person. But I think the best is, again, if I just play this short video.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Shafi. So the HoloLens itself really allows us to reshape the way we connect people, we communicate with people, also to be used in teaching and training. Initially, when you put the HoloLens on, it feels a bit strange, but actually in a few minutes, it becomes quite normal. It feels like you're just discussing cases with people in the same room, for example, like we do in normal hospital practice.
We can come in and actually look at this content in full 3D. And obviously, when you're working in this case, the medical field, having a full 3D understanding of a situation, for example, is really much more powerful in solidifying how you want to navigate it in your mind.
Rate of change is remarkable. Technology is really shaping and changing the way we provide healthcare very quickly.
So again, I said he's really a futurist, and a front runner in that, because that he did that before. We talked even about the metaverse. And in terms of medical training, the first time I met Shafi in London about 5 years ago, I was thinking that he's doing this kind of medical training, with a few hundreds of students in a few countries. Indeed, he did some session with 55,000 people following him worldwide in 142 countries. So just imagine how many years of classroom training that would be to cover 142 countries and 55,000 students. So to continue on that topic, so medical procedure and surgery. So there's a whole things about, here I mentioned pre-op, but pre-operative, post-operative stuff can be done in the metaverse so that people don't have to go to the hospital physically. Because again, I mentioned earlier, nobody loves to go to the hospital. So if you can reduce the time that you're really in the hospital and do a lot of the pre-op and post-op stuff, re-education, everything from your home in the metaverse, that would be, of course, very appreciated by many people. Then there are also high accuracy, high resolution CT scans. So that's also the point. The technology today online is sometimes even better than what you have in a practice. You can have access to high resolution stuff that you might not have in a doctor practice. Augmented reality, like here you see this patch, to see vein and organs. So you can, I'm lucky not that issue, but I know some people where it's even difficult to get a blood test, because you are really, breaking their arms, and the veins and everything to get some blood. Then there's also robot-assisted surgery, so there were examples, you probably heard about 5G, where you do operation, I think there was an example, one of the first, where the doctor, I think, was in New York, and the patient was in France, for example, and of course you need then also 5G technology, because you cannot, you have to avoid any latency or whatever, when you use this kind of technology. So it's really a bunch of technologies coming together. I mentioned earlier blockchain and all that, but there's blockchain, there's 5G, there's IoT. There are many things coming together today, which allow this kind of virtual hospitals and stuff. That's another example. Let's still do it. That's a spot from an Italian 5G provider. Just talking a little bit of these remote surgery capabilities.
confidently.
So again, this is not just science fiction. These are things which are possible today, but of course still not everywhere because it still requires certain technology. But that's just saying how fast, how quick this technology is moving. So just a few other examples, just to see on the pictures, pain management, there's also, maybe it's even not the best example here because it's quite often used for kids, so that kids have the VR headset and they can do some games and whatever, and then you divert them from getting an injections or whatever. Again, I mentioned before, education. So it's medical education, but also patient education independent of language. That's also very important, and we may even talk about, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, stuff like that, which is now coming. And for me, I said, all these things come together at the perfect time. Eh? Then digital twins, that's a dream of myself, since years, having a digital twin of yourself. You all talk about digital twin in the industry, there's a lot of things, automotive, many other, heavy manufacturing industries, but I'm dreaming of a digital twin of myself, and if I feed all the data, so being what I eat, my social life, how much I sleep, and all those data that we can collect to wearables and many other means, I would get a kind of GPS of myself, telling me when I'm going the wrong direction that I have to change my path, So again, it's still, that's more a future vision, but it's, what should I say? It's all possible, the data is there, but we are still not enough leveraging the data, because that's the other point we have to be aware. When you talk about the metaverse, it's not just the virtual world, is all that data that we are generating. Why are the big fashion brand going on the metaverse? Because, they get some indication about what you would like to design, what you would like to have, the trends and all that, and then they can build their physical trend as well, So I think we are still far, far away from leveraging the data that we are generating in such an environment. So that's the example I mentioned, this, my friend, Professor Shafi Ahmed. So the picture on the left was in London and on the right-hand side was in Dubai, end of January. So Avalon is the first hospital in the metaverse, and it's built, you see, more or less like in Dubai by a company called AI Medis. Sorry, I was too quick. And just give you another quick video about that. Okay, so just to say, you know, they, sorry, should have stopped it. Things are moving quicker than we think, you know, so not many companies have that, but AI made this, and again, is going to announce shortly, you know, that I'm going to join them as an advisor as well. Then, of course, we have also pharmacies in the metaverse. So CVS Pharmacy in the US was one of the first, you know, to buy some lands, you know, in the metaverse. Walmart didn't say it like that, but you know that Walmart has also pharmacy. So if Walmart is going on the metaverse, I don't think that they're going to go without the pharmacy department. And now I just try to accelerate a little bit because I think the key challenges are very important, and the Q&A as well. Huh? So the key challenge is, of course, there is a point about healthcare data. You all talk, you know, about data privacy, data security, regulations, ethics, you know, which is a big topic now, also becoming bigger and bigger with the whole AI discussion. So these are some of the challenges, you know, in terms of data, healthcare data. Then healthcare professional and patient, of course, as usual, you know, there's always a resistance to change. So the whole adoption and adaptation, you know, is a key point, you know, for HCPs, for healthcare professionals and patients. Technology, I think probably having some of you being expert in blockchain, you know, all those topics. So interoperability is a big topic where I put also a lot of hope on blockchain technology. Scalability, of course, you know, it's a very important point, and accessibility. So being, it's relative, you know, because I mentioned here high costs. Of course, this VR and all that is not cheap, and depending in which country, you know, but sometimes it's still cheaper than building a hospital or going to the place where you have to travel. Then the point about access from everywhere. How to use a headset, you know, if you think about elderly people, they're not always convenient with this kind of technology. And again, it should become also seamless, because, you know, these headsets are not always very comfortable. You have some people that are getting drowsiness and things like that. So there's still some expectations there. But maybe back, you know, to the access from everywhere, I like always to I update the slide each time, you know, but the next slide is about, you know, the world internet penetration. We should not forget that. We all talk about internet solutions, and, you know, the world internet penetration, the world total is 66.2%. And then if you go down to the continents, it's very different, you know, with Africa with 43%, and then North America with 93.4%. And then when you go even within the continent, at the country level, is very different. So I don't want people to lose track of that, you know, that we still continue to improve, you know, on the internet access worldwide, because the problem is things like the healthcare metaverse is for me also the opportunity to give access to people which are on the countryside or whatever, you know, but if they don't have internet, you are not improving the reach for those people. So we should never forget, you know, that we still continue from a, let's say, infrastructure point of view to improve, you know, the world internet penetration in every country. I mentioned before, you know, seamless. I said those headsets are not always that seamless, you know, so I think, of course, we should also think about the metaverse without headset. And I think I'm now ready for Q&A, yeah? So because I think, and of course, feel free to connect with me, you know, on LinkedIn. Yeah, you're all welcome. So I'm open for any questions. And of course, if some questions are popping up later, you can still contact me via LinkedIn or email.
Okay, first question. I can tell it to you. Thank you, Phillipe, first of all. But first question is how the metaverse could now transform the healthcare.
As said, we have a huge issue in healthcare worldwide. In every single country, it's slightly different from one country to the other, but we don't have enough doctors, nurses, and everything. And quite often, I think they are overloaded with I was to say, with people that should not go there. You know, if you have a flu, you know, maybe it's not just getting some paracetamol or whatever is good enough. You don't have to go to the doctors. So we have this gap, you know, of not having enough doctors, and then we overload them with tasks they should not do. Even more important than that is the whole bureaucracy. You know, there is a huge paperwork. It's amazing, you know, where you know, we talk about digitalization, but if you go to the hospitals and all that, if you still see how many paper you have to fill, or the data that is not exchanged and all that. So if we can remove all that burden from the doctors so that they have more time to do what the doctor should do, and where you need the expertise of the real doctor. And again, my friend, Professor Shafi Ahmed was a good example. When I met him 5 years ago, he was telling me, Philip, I'm an oncologist. I have to tell people that they have maybe 3 or 6 months to live. So I take everything what the technology can remove from my burden so that I have time to talk to my patient. So again, for me, Metaverse is this kind of example where whatever we can do on the Metaverse that doesn't need a physical presence with the doctor, whatever, we should do.
Okay. Philip.
And again, it's also the point of access from everywhere. You could get access, you know, to the best oncologies at the other end of the world that physically you would not have access to.
Okay. Thank you very much, Philip. Really, we are very much appreciated, because the topic healthcare in Metaverse is a very interesting topic, and it's very good to hear from an expert like you. On behalf of Istanbul Aydın University Blockchain Academy, I would like to give my sincere thanking for being today with us. And I hope we will meet again in different projects. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you for the invitation, and it was a pleasure, and I'm sure that we will meet somewhere else. I know that you are also very active in terms of, I mentioned blockchain, but you're also, I think, the founder of the Metaverse Council or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope maybe we will meet also in Metaverse.
Yeah, sure. But maybe I look slimmer on an avatar than in real life, you know.
No, you are okay.
Okay.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Have
a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.